What's up everyone, I'm Tim and this is my channel 40 Times Around. Today I'm going to share with you guys 10 tips on how to be a safer rider on your next motorcycle trip. These might just save your life, so stay tuned. Alright guys, let's jump right into this. So tip number one is don't be the first person into an intersection. When you're stopped at a red light, you want to make sure you just take a quick pause before you jump out into an intersection. These are where most motorcycle accidents happen, are at intersections. So definitely when you're pulling out at a green light, make sure you stop, maybe let one car go ahead of you and just look around before you jump out into the intersection. It's not always about hot rodding around and racing from red light to red light, so just take your time. It's not a race, so be safe and don't get T-boned. Okay guys, so tip number two actually kind of coincides with tip number one, and this is always look both ways at an intersection, but this isn't just at traffic lights. This could be at any intersecting roads. So wherever there's a street, where there could potentially be traffic moving at 180 degrees to you, you want to look both ways and continue to look both ways as you make your way through the intersection. And of course, also, even if you're pulling into, from a stop at a red light and you're pulling ahead at a green light, you want to make sure you check both ways. Out here in Phoenix in particular, this is a huge issue with guys getting T-boned, like a lot. People running red lights or just pulling out into the street without, looking at all. I mean, texting and driving is a huge issue out here. You always want to be looking for potential hazards coming at you from side streets and intersections. So definitely keep an eye on that. Okay, tip number three, this is basically lane positioning and being purposeful about your lane position if you're riding alone. And this goes along with riding with a friend too. You want to be staggered, not just for, avoiding, encroaching on each other, but you want to make sure, especially if you're in the middle lane, that you can be visible from this car that's driving next to you and this car that's driving next to you. In other words, when you're in a car and you're looking in this mirror and there's a car passing you right here, you'll notice you only really see their right front blinker. You don't see their left front blinker in your mirror, most likely if you have your mirrors lined up like most people do. So you want to make sure if you're on a motorcycle that you are filling up that space so that when that driver isn't going to necessarily hear you coming by, they're going to look over and they're at least going to see you in their mirror if they don't actually go and check their blind spot. So purposefully placing yourself in the lane just to make sure that you're visible as you can be. I mean, you always want to pretty much assume people don't see you, but anything you can do to make sure you're right up in people's face is going to give you a huge advantage. So lane positioning is key. Tip number four. This you should definitely be doing. I'm pretty sure they teach this one in the motorcycle safety course, so if that's how you guys got your license, I'm sure you've heard this one before, but you want to be checking your mirrors roughly every 6 seconds. Moving or not, just constantly just glance over. Obviously it's more important what's in front of you, but you do not want to be surprised by someone running into the back of your motorcycle. I've always kind of considered that any accident that happens involving the motorcycle, you have to think that it's partially the motorcyclist's fault. You have to take responsibility for your own life. You cannot expect someone in a car that doesn't know you, that doesn't know anything about motorcycles and isn't trained to look for motorcycles. You can't expect them to be thinking about your life being as important as it should be to you. So you need to take responsibility for that. Just because someone rear-ended you and it was their fault doesn't mean it wasn't avoidable. Keep an eye on what's going on behind you so that you can get out of the way if it looks like someone doesn't see you or is coming up on you too fast. So definitely keep an eye on your mirrors and just be aware of what's going on around you 360 degrees at all times. Tip number 5 is always have an exit strategy, especially if you're in a situation where there's multiple lanes of traffic moving in the same direction and you're kind of in between cars and there's a lot going on around you, or similarly if you're pulling up to a red light in particular and multiple lanes, like I said, don't get so close to the car that you're stopping behind that you don't have an exit strategy if it looks like the car behind you isn't paying attention and isn't going to come to a stop. Much better that they hit the car that's in front of you than they hit you. So you want to make sure that you have a space to get out and enough room to go to the left of that car or the right of that car so you can get out of the way. Okay guys, tip number 6. This is always be looking about 8 seconds ahead. 8 to 10 seconds ahead of you. Just constantly scanning what's going on in front of you, making predictions and trying to read the situation as much as possible, what's coming at you in the next few seconds, and prepare for it and take decisive action. Okay guys, tip number 7, make sure you're reading traffic signs. You can't always depend on this 100%. They're not always there, number 1, so you need to be expecting hazards even if there aren't signs, but keep an eye out for this because this is a great clue for what might be coming up. Railroad crossings, you know, that could be a little tricky on a motorcycle if you're not prepared for it, or just different warning signs for changes in road conditions or traffic patterns, things like that. You want to use every tool that's accessible to you to be as safe as possible, so street signs are a tool you have, you might as well use them. Alright guys, tip number 8, when you're sitting at a red light, make sure you're in first gear. I see a lot of guys do this, they put their hands down by their side, which is great. I know you want to relax a little bit, but this is not really a great place to be relaxing. If you're stopped at a red light, keep your hands on the handlebars. Be ready to move at any moment. Keeping an eye on your mirrors, and if you see somebody coming up a little too quick, I will even just pump my brakes. Just get that brake light to flash in their face. They're more likely to see you, but keep an eye on them because if you have to get out of the way, not having to take that extra step of putting the bike into gear gives you that much more of a chance of actually successfully getting out of the way. So keep it in gear, guys. Okay guys, tip number 9. Make sure you keep an eye out for distracted drivers. Some things you can kind of look for is any kind of, you know, floating within their lane, if they're possibly even coming over into your lane, any kind of swerving, any kind of fluctuation in speed that just doesn't make sense or doesn't go with the flow of traffic. They could be distracted from a lot of things, doing their makeup, eating, talking on the phone, texting, a lot of things. If you're driving around at night, I picked up on this one driving around in Phoenix at night because you see it in almost every single car when you're sitting at a light at night. Every single person has the cell phone glow on their face. If you're driving around and you see somebody with that going on, get away from them as quickly as possible. Okay guys, tip number 10. Make sure you guys are using your blinkers, but be aware of not using them too soon. You want to make sure you're careful about what you're communicating to other drivers. You know, if there's a potential that it could be mistaken that you're taking a turn before the turn you're actually taking, just give it an extra couple seconds before you turn that blinker on. But make sure you actually use it, especially if there's someone behind you. You're going to stop a lot quicker than a car is, so you want to make sure that they have enough notice to slow down a little bit. So definitely use your turn signals. Alright, that's it. Those are the 10 tips on how to be a safer rider. Hope you guys got something out of this video. If you did, make sure you hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe if you guys want to see more of my videos. I do a lot of videos about motorcycle traveling, adventure, camping, all kinds of things like that. A lot of great information, whether you already love to travel on a motorcycle and you do this a lot, or if you've never done it before and you're just looking to get started. So check that stuff out. All right, that's it. I'll see you guys next time.